It's Energumen opening up a clear advantage in the closing stages. A breath of fresh air over fences is going to stay at the helm of the 2 mile novices. Energumen by.
Boyle Sports has it all. Money back meetings every day. UK and Irish racing live streaming. Extra places and money back all losers offers. And a bet 10 get 40 welcome offer. Boyle Sports, this is betting.
So hello and welcome back to the Champ.ie podcast on a Friday morning before declarations on Sunday, Ronan Groome. It's an Irish bonanza because of course we do not have Ascot. The Clarence House doesn't go ahead. And well, of course, we have inspections at Haydock as well. So it's an Irish bonanza. We're going to take a look at 3 races on the card at Navan on Saturday. Of course, Thurles, what was the Kinloch Bray, Mr. Groome, on Sunday. And well, the Thyestes Chase, of course, that is the final race we're going to take a look at. Obviously, AntePost rules apply in the 5 cast. But we said we would take a look at the old Thyestes Chase. And we both like one in there. And yeah, well, you're heading skiing, plenty of frost around. Probably frostier around County Loud here than it is in the French Alps, Mr. Groome.
Yeah, Austria is where I'm heading for, and I don't mind seeing the cold weather there, but pity about this weekend, unfortunately. Looking forward to Energumen and Leopardstown. I think they might reschedule that for next week, possibly at Cheltenham. But we're stuck into the Irish now. Please, fingers crossed. I was checking the forecast all week, and it's been to thaw, to kind of cool down or to heat up even to today. So from noon. So we should be okay with the Irish meetings. And you lost to get stuck into Navan and Thurles.
Absolutely. Well, we will have a special guest later on the show, Mr. Groome, and I suppose we just to highlight the 5 cast race is going to go down through. They are up on screen at the moment. The 107 at Navan is the first race we're going to take a look at on Saturday. The 142 at Navan, take no girls, as Mike Vince would say. The 142 at Navan, also going to take a look at that. The 327 race at Navan, and well, at Thurles on Sunday, as mentioned, the Kinloch Bray race won by, of course, Allaho. Now the horse and jockey, Mr. Groome, as you were correcting me quite rightly off air, and the Thyestes Chase, of course, as well, which is on Thursday, a big day at Gorham Park, and look forward to getting down there. We will crack on. Just a very quick thank you. Plenty of good support in the last video. Of course, on Monday, Mr. Groome, was episode number 11 of the Road to Cheltenham Challenge. This is episode number 25. Building a bit of momentum now towards, obviously, as we head towards Cheltenham. Anyone who hasn't, I suppose, subscribed to the channel, please do so. As Mike Vince would say, like the video and do as well. Get your 5 cast in down below. Patrick Hickey was the last winner of the 5 cast. We do have a draw later on the show, and we have 4 in the drum. And just to highlight on that, Mr. Groome, Patrick Hickey was a winner of the 5 cast last week. He has done a bet with Boyle Sports, and he said he's going to donate €100 to charity that comes up. So it's a travel for Cheltenham. More on that later on. So first race we're going to take a look at is, as mentioned, the 107 at Navan on Saturday. I don't know, are you going up? I know you're not going skiing till Sunday, but the 107 it's a grade B. It's a decent looking contest. Plenty of prize money at stake. At the moment, we've 15 declared. The ground is soft to heavy, and this is a grade B handicap hurdle over 2.5 miles. And I must start by saying, is the Gordon Elliott stable form a bit of a worry? 3% running in the last fortnight.
Yeah, it would have to be. It would have to be a bit of a worry for sure. And he's got a few in here, potentially interesting, likes of O'Fleuron and the top of the weights there. Grand Raw was a classy horse in his day, but I would be taking him on here anyway. And going back to an old friend of mine, we all have these horses that we connect to for some reason, probably because we backed them for a win at a nice price. And that was me with Drop the Anchor at the Dublin Racing Festival a couple of seasons ago. I backed him there for that Ladbrokes hurdle, what used to be the Pierce hurdle, and he came home with a late rattle, and that's his running style. Now he his form over hurdles since. He hasn't won since. He wouldn't have the greatest form figures coming into this over hurdles. He's 9,500, but that doesn't take into account his win in the November handicap at Naas, where he flew home there to beat my mate Mozzie. A really nice performance on the flat. Elevated his rating to 94 there, and he can run back now. I think he's been just kept back for this. Soft ground. He's always shaped as if he'd stay 2.5 miles. He finishes off his races over 2 miles really well on soft ground. So soft ground 2.5 miles now, I think, could be what he needs at 9. And Aidan Kelly, who rides him, has been riding really well in the green and gold recently. He rode Birdie Bliss to win nicely at Punchestown last Sunday, and the week before that he was on Cotaharla, like 2 easy winners. So he's getting nice opportunities for JP now, and I just think he's an interesting jockey booking for Drop the Anchor. I want to mention as well the mare Rebel Ivy. Like, she absolutely bolted up the last day, and she beat Heaven Help Us in Queensbrook. Now, most people will say, "Oh, geez, they weren't off, or they weren't not off, but they weren't ready to run. They're on their seasonal debut there. Probably lacking fitness or whatever." But this mare absolutely bolted up. She was on her seasonal debut as well. She has some nice form last season. I think the handicapper probably looked at it and said, "I can't really give her that much because I'm not sure how 100% the others were." And he only gave her £12. She's very interesting off a mark of 129 if you believe the run, and I do to an extent. I do have a slight doubt that the others weren't running as well as they could have been, but I definitely think she's worth when the betting does come out from. My apologies, fell over there. When the betting does come up from Boyle Sports, have a look at this mare. She's interesting.
Yeah, you've mentioned too there, Rebel Ivy was the one that I suppose I was most interested in, and for 5 cast purposes, if you get a decent price on Rebel Ivy. You mentioned, I suppose, how good was the horses that ran in behind Queensbrook and Heaven Help Us. They finished third and second and third. So, I suppose if you look at the bear form, she looks like a new animal this season. And obviously it was, she'll have no trouble on the ground. She is lightly raced. As you said, what does the handicap? We give her £12. Coming in here, I mean, she's beat Heaven Help Us, who's rated 136, and Queensbrook by 144. By 10 and 14 lengths respectively. So if you're to believe the bear form, she has to be an absolute massive player in here. That's Rebel Ivy. You've made a case for Drop the Anchor. He could be on a very dangerous mark, couldn't he? I mean, he won. Was it the final race of the flat season he won at Naas?
Yeah, the final card anyway. Yeah, I'm not sure it was the final actual race, but it was big performance, I thought.
Yeah, it was. Like, he's obviously going to have no trouble on the ground. And like, he is reasonably lightly raced as well for a 9-year-old. So as you've made a good case for him. I just think she's very, very interesting. Love the way she did it last time. Yeah, this was the one quite like there's going to be absolutely no doubt there's going to be pace in this race, and she can come from off a strong pace on the ground, nice racing weight. And I just like Rebel Ivy. Yeah, I think she's definitely a big player here, Ronan, in what is the 107. So get your picks down below for the 5 cast.
Download the Boyle Sports app and receive generous offers for new and existing customers. Boyle Sports, this is betting.
Right, coming on to the 142, Ronan at Navan. It is handicap hurdle, slightly lesser grade here, 2 miles 4 furlong the distance. We have 19 runners this time, and we don't have prices as of yet. But what did you like the look of in here in the 142 at Navan? Big field and it looks competitive.
Yeah, very much getting on the Aidan Kelly train at Navan on Saturday, Basil. I like the Mary rides here for Robert Widger, Indy Bell. I think she's interesting. She's in really good form. She ran 5th in the listed race to Durasso, no less, back in December. Now she was 5th of 5 there, well beaten, but she was 300 to 1 and she was only beaten 25 lengths. It wasn't an absolute disgrace for a mare running off a mark at 94. And she duly obliged next time in a chase at Tramore, and then went back to Tramore on New Year's Day and finished 3rd in a 2 mile handicap hurdle. I think coming back up 2.5 miles, the distance she won over at Tramore was 2 miles 5.5. Coming back up to 2.5 miles on the heavy ground here, she's in good form. She's back over hurdles compared to her chase mark. She's £4 well in, £4 better off. I think in a race that, as you say, Basil, is pretty average, to be honest, and a few of these are in, poor form, very exposed.
It's going to be a decent betting race, and there could be anything in here that's to use the phrase thrown in. But you're taking on my selection, Ron, because Indy Bell was the one I was most interested in as well. Look, I thought if you look back at her penultimate start, that was down at Tramore over fences. She led most of the way. She's probably likely to be up there on the pace, so certainly prominent in the race. She's going to handle the testing conditions. It was soft ground in that race at Tramore over fences. Obviously, she reverts back to hurdles. The ground, as mentioned, is not going to be an issue. Lovely racing weight. And when you have mentioned, of course, Indy Bell, it will be ridden by Aidan Kelly. And, you've made reference to his forms. The strike rate for this young man, he's obviously full value for the claim, 43% strike rate. So I said 7 rides and with 3 winners in the last fortnight. So clearly the right man on board. Just to mention for Penny Jar, obviously for local trainer Pat Downey, I'm sure it will be favoured by Manny. Just the ground, maybe a slight worry.
Yeah, very much so, yeah.
The one thing I would say about that form is the form is working out, because Verdon Place, if anyone hasn't seen that horse that won for Pat Foley on Monday at Punchestown, put that one in the tracker, because I'd say it'll win again. I think the form has stood up, has been given a break, but I suppose the break and the ground possibly an issue, and it might be a big ask to go in and win a 4th race in a row for Penny Jar in this sort of company. So with you, Ronan, Indy Bell in what's the 142 at Navan, I was going to say Punchestown.
Download the Boyle Sports app and receive generous offers for new and existing customers. Boyle Sports, this is betting.
What way do you see the 327 at Navan on Saturday? Because there's lots of point-to-point form in here. This is really low-grade stuff, Ronan. So you're going to earn your crust here, Mr. Groome.
It's low-grade stuff, right? But this 3 Loud Knocks, 11-year-old for Brian Mortal, he is quite interesting on the back of his run at Limerick. So he was 3rd to Sir Bob there in a handicap chase on the last day of the Limerick Christmas Festival, right? But he was £17 out of the handicap, so he had to compete off a mark at 97. He's only rated 80. So essentially he can run here off his actual mark. Michael Sullivan, a grade 1 winning jockey on top of him, is taking £5 off. So, you can take this form literally sometimes at this such a low level. I don't think it's simple as that. But he definitely has to have a chance of essentially running off £17 lower than when he was 3rd to Sir Bob in probably what was, it wasn't as big a field, but definitely the horses in better form. So I think he's really interested in 3 Loud Knocks. I'd be very interested to see what the traders put him in at when they price this race up. There are a few horses in decent form, like Spancel Hill, Diego's Way, Sanibel Island winning recently as well, so they'd be fancy towards the top of the market. But this 3 Loud Knocks, just on the back of that Limerick run, I think he's really interesting. So yeah, interested in him.
Yeah, 3 Loud Knocks wasn't. I had it between Spancel Hill, Sanibel Island, and the one that I'm going to put in here is, and you probably get a decent enough price on this Legacy of Dreams. It's rated 82. Was a point-to-point winner at Mr. Groome back in October. Not going to have any trouble on the ground. As running quite a few point-to-points for that man Philip Rotwell, who he had 3 winners in the last fortnight. Certainly a stable in form at the moment. Paddy O'Hanlon on board, paying £5 off. Nice racing weight of 10-10. And I thought it was a brilliant effort at Fairyhouse on New Year's Day when it was upsides the likes of Mallow Appeal and sure, why not? Coming down to the last over 3 miles over hurdles on soft ground and just weakened late on. Miss P. Elvin was riding on that occasion, claiming 7s. Paddy O'Hanlon today, or on Saturday, tomorrow, as we're recording. I thought it was an encouraging effort over hurdles. This is his first run over fences on the track. And is lightly raced individuals. And he had 7 runs over hurdles. I thought that was probably its career best, obviously, on the track last time and finishing 3rd of 17. So that's one that I would possibly put into the mix. Legacy Appeal, and you're probably going to get a decent price on it. So for Philip Rotwell in what is the 327 race at Navan on Saturday. Right, Mr. Groome, next up we'll be moving to Sunday and Thurles' card.
Download the Boyle Sports app and receive generous offers for new and existing customers. Boyle Sports, this is betting.
Well, it's horse and jockey time, Mr. Groome. What way do you see it? No Allaho this season, but we were just talking off air. It's probably likely. We're obviously, for 5-cast purposes, when this goes live, everyone will have full declarations for the 5-cast. But we were just talking off air. It's probably likely that a good few of these could, especially at the front of what's likely to be the front of the market, will stand their ground.
Yeah, you'd like to think so, because it'll be a brilliant race if they do. The likes of Fakir Deri up there, Shakan Boursois moving up to 2.5 miles. That's really interesting. And you've Lifetime Ambition, Durasso, really, really solid. Hawthorne Couleur even is a horse people latched onto last season, coming up a trip. And French Dynamite was the one I was interested in. I mentioned him on the Christmas kind of review. And I think he's really interesting. If he's declared here, I'm going to have a bit on him each way.
The ground is like concerned with him.
Possibly, yeah. But if he's declared here, it signals the intent of Mouse Morris that he's going to stick with him to graded level. I wanted to back him for the Ryanair, but I was half thinking that they might just go with his mark again and go for maybe that Paddy Power plate instead. So I think I'm going to back him at 33s each way if he is declared here. It just signals the intent of the owner and connections that they want to stick to graded level, and I think he's interested back at Cheltenham. So they're very interested to see what he runs here. As you say, we're working off entries now, so it's a bit of a guessing game for us. But by the time this goes out, I'm sure the decks will be in, so there'll be a better shape to the race. Just to mention, Champ.ie, very interesting. Always comes on for his first run, and coming up in trip. I don't know what you feel about him at the 2.5 miles. No. But he travels well. He always travels so well over the 2 miles and jumps well. I'm just wondering, do you blunt what he's good at, and is this kind of trying to reach in a bit from Willie Mullins to trying to get him competitive again at graded 1 level eventually at 2.5 miles? We'll have to see. Fakir Didere probably is going to be the solid one, the one to beat here if he does turn up. He usually comes on for his first run as well. So really good race if they all show up, and hopefully they do.
You might be okay. I think anyone trying to make a case for Chacun Boursois for the Ryanair, I just personally couldn't be having it whatsoever. I think they're clutching at straws because, look, he's an 11-year-old. But that being said, Ronan, he is a lightly enough race to 11-year-old. Obviously he was off the track a lot in his early years. I don't know what you thought of his run. Obviously, Blue Lord is a real improver. He's went away and won by foot. Well, he won by was it 11 lengths. And Chacun Boursois sandwiched in between Course Sublime, who's top of the market for the Grand Annual, and Captain Guinness. So I think he's going to have to step up on that form, and maybe 2.5 miles will bring out more improvement. Fakir Didere, look, he's run into Allaho in this race a couple of times in the past. He's not going to have any trouble on the ground. And Fakir Didere could be set for a big year because, obviously didn't run in Cheltenham last season. They avoided it, but, was a winner in Ascot, and obviously probably his best effort last season did come at Aintree, but with doubts around Allaho this season, I thought it was a fine effort on season reappearance. I'd be finding it hard to oppose Fakir Didere here. French Dynamite have slight concerns on ratings and on the ground. He's going to have to obviously come forward plenty on official ratings. And look, I'm not knocking your selection, but certainly I'd be more interested in French Dynamite than getting involved in Chacun Boursois. But I think the solid one in here is Fakir Didere. And it wouldn't surprise me if Lifetime Ambition, there wasn't much between him and Lifetime Ambition and Fakir Didere at Punchestown. Wouldn't be surprised if he ran a big race. So if they all stand their ground, it's a cracker, as you said. But Fakir Didere, I think, for 5-cast purposes, is probably the solid one, Mr. Groome. Right, Thyestes Chase, Mr. Groome, that will be next.
Download the Boyle Sports app and receive generous offers for new and existing customers. Boyle Sports, this is betting.
So, Mr. Groome, it is obviously AntePost Thyestes Chase. We're going to be looking a lot to this. We're going to be looking at it with Davy Boland in more detail on Monday. He's replacing the Golden Groom as he's up on the Alps skiing. So, Davy Boland is going to be on the Monday show, and we're going to be taking a closer look at the Thyestes next week early on. What way do you see it?
You mentioned at the top of the show, like Gordon's form is definitely worrying, and he does have a good kind of chunk of the runners here, and a lot of the fancied ones as well, like Viscaria 10, Pencil Full of Lead. Even that Porterstown winner Punitive I thought was interesting as well.
Okay, if Gordon Elliott, here's a question for you. If Gordon Elliott's stable form wasn't maybe a concern, which of the Gordon runners would interest you the most? For
probably
me,
that
the previous winner, Cocoa Beach.
Yeah, he's interesting as well. He could be back to a workable mark, but that probably the Fairy House winner Punitive. I thought he did it well, and the horse he beat for Kira ran very well the other day at Punchestown. And he's kind of lightly raced chaser, will stay all day, like the ground, that sort of thing. I think Frontal Assault is interesting as well. I wouldn't give up on him. Back in a handicap, Gordon has good record in this race, but the best record obviously is Willie Mullins. He's at 8 winners since the millennium. And Franco Deport, I guess, is in their favours. Willie always likes to have a horse for this local race. But the one I like, Basil, and I think you're a fan as well, is Donkey Years for Eric McNamara.
Yeah.
Now, Eric McNamara won the Paddy Power chase with Real Steel at 33-1, and Donkey Years was his other run in the race and seeded Mark Walsh earlier, but he was much more fancy Donkey Years. He went off 10-1 there for that big handicap chase. His form behind that, he was third to the Big Dog.
The Big Dog
down in Limerick. which is a really good run. Like, go back then to Punchestown. He won the 3 mile handicap chase there the last day of the Punchestown Festival last season. So he's really progressive on his last few runs, donkey years. And the fact that he's gone off 10 to 1 for a Paddy Power, right? Like, he should be going off a bit shorter here in theory. Like, it's not a stronger race. It's not going to be as big as a field. And I think he could be, he's JP's only runner in the race. Which is interesting as well. So yeah, big fan of him donkey years. I think he's, with some other bookmakers in around the 14 to 1 mark. That's an interesting kind of way in as well. I think that's probably, a bit generous on what he's done donkey years and the record he has. So I'm looking towards him as a possible play here.
Yeah, so am I, and we're going to try Mr. Gunn. That's my pick at this stage for the race. I'm going to go into more detail on Monday, but at this point in time, I'm with donkey years as well. As you mentioned, he's not over raced at 3 miles. I loved what he done in the early part of last season, over 2.5 miles, the minimum distance. He finished second. He caught my eye when finishing second to Facker Delen at Thurles, and it was good to yielding ground. He has won on heavy at 2 miles in Navan in the past. So if it turns up really soft here, it's not going to be an issue to him. The form, obviously, with the big dog is cracking form, at Navan. At Limerick, I should say. He's gone on and won the Tri-Town, and since then obviously ran a big race in what was the Welsh National. So that's really decent form, as you mentioned. What didn't go off unfancied for the Paddy Power Leopardstown at Christmas, and you'd have to think off his mark of 134, there's probably a bit of wiggle room off that. And as you mentioned, he's JP's only runner. So yeah, intriguing, because I couldn't back a Gordon Elliott horse for the Thyestes Chase based on what I'm seeing in terms of the figures at the moment. And he could go and win it. He's obviously has plenty of chances in there. The one of Willie's, because obviously Willie's going to target this race. I thought Carefree Selected. Was he off the track for over 1,000 days before he ran at Christmas? Wasn't over hard on him, Sean O'Keefe, crept away at the back of the field. I'm just wondering, certainly he could be one of the best handicapped horses in the race. Obviously went off to be favoured for a National Hunt Chase at one point in time. We haven't seen him for, almost to go to 3 years. But, he could be a more relaxed horse now at this stage. There could be wiggle room off his current mark. And of the ones that Willie have at the, at the top of the market, I'd be more interested in him now than Franco Laporte, I think. I think the Thyestes traditionally favours horses, lower down in the weights. If you look at the stats of the Thyestes over the last 20 years, it does pay to be right down the bottom of the weights. And that's something with donkey's years, just to mention, it's going to get in right at the bottom. So, incredible. We'll try to get a price boost if anyone does want to follow us in on donkey years, and we're going to try to get a price boost. Keep an eye on Twitter, our Twitter page, on the pinned tweet section, and that's where we've been putting our price boosts with Boyle Sports in there. So do keep an eye on that if you do fancy donkey ears. Right, Mr. Groome, it's nap and next best time, and at the end then we're going to draw the winner of the latest 5-cast. Mr. Groome, nap and next best, take it away.
Yeah, I'm going to nap, drop the anchor in the nice handicap hurdle at Navan, and next best, I will go with that 3 Loud Knocks. Just think he's interesting in that the last race in Navan on Saturday.
Mr. Groome, my nap of the weekend, when it does come, Mr. Groome, at Haydock, if it goes ahead, because there is a likelihood that Haydock could potentially go ahead, and I think in the 255 at Haydock, it's priced up at 7-2 at the moment. There's a horse in there for the Skeletons called Schalke Jack. Fell on its reappearance, and this is going to be a much better chaser than he was a hurler. And off his current mark at the moment over fences of 125, has dropped officially £4 by the handicapper for falling. So could be well handicapped. Obviously not ideal coming off the back of a fall, but just at 125 for this horse Schalke Jack. And he's going to be a much better chaser. And my next best, Mr. Groome, I am going to go. I'm going to keep it simple. I think Facker Duderie. I think a lot of these will line up on Saturday. And we'll put Facker Duderie in as the next best. So maybe a double on the two of those, should they both go ahead. And Mr. Groome, that has been episode number 25 for the season. And we are going to get a special guest right now. Yeah, so delighted to be joined by Brian Hayes on what is the Champ.ie podcast, episode number 25 of the season. Brian, couldn't be going better. 35 winners last season, but you're well on course again this year.
Yeah, season going well so far, Barry. Starting to sit on a few nice horses this season now. Obviously great to be attached to the William Mullins yard there as well, getting on a few of them as well. So it's all going nicely. Yeah.
Super. It'd be rude probably not to start with Impervious, of course. Brian, this mare was. Did you expect her to win last time? I suppose giving way to the geldings.
Yeah, it was definitely going to be hard to give geldings a pound, whereas usually we'd be getting £7 off them if it was a grade one. But you'd have to be so impressed with her the way she put a good horse of Henry de Bromhead's to bed there, and to pull 22 lengths clear of the third horse. It was a fair performance.
Yeah, you've struck up quite a good relationship with her as well, and she's unbeaten over fences. She's most of her forms on testing ground. Do you think is she better on that type of ground, Brian?
Yeah, she definitely handles it very well. But at the same time, I'd have no worries about her running on nicer ground. She has a nice action, an easy way of going. So I don't think going to Cheltenham and the possibility of nicer ground or the festivals towards the spring, I don't think it'll throw any problems to her. But you never know unless you go. But hopefully it won't inconvenience her too much.
And it's looking like an absolute cracking clash. Of course, she wasn't entered into Turner's, Impervious, that is, but looks like it could be a cracker with Allegory, Devassi and Scarlet and Dove, all with looking like they've live claims again this season.
Absolutely, yeah. You probably a few people surprised that she wasn't entered in the Turners, but I suppose that the connections have their sights fully set on the Mayor's Chase, and yeah, it looks like it's going to be a cracking duel. Obviously, it'll be very interesting to see Allegory, Devassi turn out in Thurles on Sunday, and Scarlet and Dove was impressive the last day in Fairyhouse, and throw one or two of the English into the mix as well, and it could be a cracking race.
Yeah, 100%. And I wanted to ask you about a horse because you did have a lot to do with Noble Yates in his early days. Has he surprised you how much he's after improving?
Absolutely. We always thought he'd a big engine, not the biggest horse in the world. I remember winning a maiden hurdle on him by half the track one day in Navan, and then Beginner's Chase at the start of the season in Galway. He won that nicely as well, and he just kept improving then, and then to win the Grand National. He ran the Paddy Power and he ran in Cheltenham, and he ran okay. You wouldn't have been thinking he was going to win the Grand National anyway, but he duly did. And this year then it's just he's obviously improved again, so he's looking like he's well up in the betting for the Gold Cup. It's phenomenal, really.
And if he's on the premises turning in, I wouldn't like to be the ones in front.
No, I wouldn't. No, he's all stamina. Obviously, after winning the Grand National, there's no qualms about his stamina, and he's definitely going to stay over that marathon trip of the Gold Cup, and they usually go a strong gallop, so it should suit. And he seems to go through I remember even riding him myself. He always does go through a bit of a flat spot in his races, but when he gets through that, he really finishes strongly and hits the line strong. So I think he's definitely a force to be reckoned with.
Yeah, and look, speaking of stayers, speaking of chasers, Mr. Incredible, he must have given you some spin in the classic chase at Warwick.
Absolutely, yeah. We didn't know what to expect. He's obviously a funny character. He ended his career with Henry, and after not jumping off in a race. So then he was obviously a very chancy boy, but Paul Byrne and Patrick Mullins joined forces there, and Patrick's done a lot of work with him in Willies. He's really sweetened him up and just tried to kind of get his mojo again, for the want of a better word. But he certainly did that with him anyway, and I think he did himself proud now running that race he ran. He really stayed on well at the finish. So I think connections were delighted with him, just that he ran a good race,
And Cheltenham handicaps on the agenda, I'm sure.
Yeah, Patrick was telling me the other night that Kim Muir is going to be his port of call. He'll have top weight on that because he got £3 for that second in Warwick the other day. So he'll be in off it's 145. So he'll run off top weight in the Kim Muir, and hopefully all will go well there, and he'll go to the Grand National then, and he'll definitely get in off 145, and hopefully I'll throw my leg over him, hopefully, if he gets there in one piece.
I'm sure you're looking forward to riding him again. Looking on to next week, just very quickly, Brian. Obviously, the Thyestes Chase. Locally, it's a big race. Willie has 7 of the 27 7 of the 27 entries in here. And I was just looking back to the records. You've thrown your leg over 6 of the 7 at some point in time.
Yeah. I'm surprised to hear that now, but yeah, sure, I probably have. Just looking at them here, I'm looking at the list here. Yeah, there's 1 or 2 that mightn't get in. Rambrin Jack, number 5, Stones and Roses, number 6 in the ballot, mightn't get in. Captain Kangaroo was very impressive down in Cork when he did win, and then he went over to run an entry over the big fences. Didn't get too far there, and didn't get too far in the Paddy Power either. But I think on a bit of the ground will be testing, as it always is for the Thyestes. So, if Captain Kangaroo did get in there off a nice lightweight, 10 stone 2, 10 stone 1 even, he's a nice lightweight for that particular race. He might be a good each way bet there.
And if you were on board, I'm sure you'd be hitting the Laura Bagdell.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's a famous race. It's a famous race in general, but down here, when I'm only 10 minutes away from the racetrack, all of William Mullins has got a half day that particular day, next Thursday. So everyone goes, and it's a real local, big day for everyone local, and it'll be packed. The grandstands will be packed, and it's a real meeting you'd look forward to, and geez, you'd love to win it.
And finally, Brian, look, when we were planning to talk, obviously you had a couple of rides in Taunton. That's now off.
Yeah.
So looking ahead to 8 weeks now to the Cheltenham Festival. Before you go, dark horse maybe to follow at the Spring Festival.
Yeah, absolutely. I was just saying, I'm thinking to myself, the last Saturday when I was in Warwick, Paddy won the Fairy House, won the bumper there with a horse by Mohaher called Westport Cove. Just listening to Paddy after, I was just chatting to him after the race regards Mr. Incredible, and I was just saying he won the bumper, and he was just saying he did plenty wrong. He was keen, and he didn't do a lot of things right, but he has a big engine, and he definitely said to me anyway, he put him on his list for the Cheltenham bumper in March. So I'd say he'll be a nice price for that anyway.
Absolutely. Well, listen, Brian, it's an absolute pleasure talking to you. Best of luck for the remainder of the season. I'm sure there's big spring winners to come for yourself, and appreciate you doing this.
No bother, Barry. Thanks a million.
Download the Boyle Sports app and receive generous offers for new and existing customers. Boyle Sports, this is betting.
Right, so it's time for the 5-cast draw, Mr. Groome. Just to list out the people who had 2 winners or more and entered the draw this week: Ian Miller, William Lundy, Adam Bramfield, and Pádraig Kelly. William Lundy, you had 3 winners in the 5-cast. So congratulations. One of these days, Ronan Groome, we're going to be off in Vegas, as someone will land the 5-cast, and that will keep us in mind. So do keep us in mind when you do land the 5-cast. Get your selections in for this week. Make sure to like the video, of course, and subscribe if you haven't already. And thank you very much for all those positive messages in the comments. We don't want no negativity in there. So the draw, roll the drum, Mr. Groome. Boyles Sports Chalice this week is winner of the 5-cast. So a 20 free bet with Boyles Sports goes the way of William Lundy. And William, you were the one who had 3 winners last week. So a big
just justification. So he deserves it with 3 winners. Fair play.
He does, yeah, absolutely. So William Lundy, a 20 free bet for you, and we'll just get in touch via Twitter, via email, and we'll get that credited to your Boyles Sports account. So, and there you go, Mr. Groome. That has been episode number 25. Enjoy the skiing, and you will be back, of course, with 2 AntePost selections when you do get back, because you will be playing catch up. And it could be a big weekend. Of course, I was just looking at this weekend. Probably not too much shake-up in the AntePost markets.
Probably not this weekend, no. It's that quiet period, isn't it, before Dublin Racing Festival and the Cheltenham Thurles meeting. So it'll all start topping up then.
100%. We'll see you soon, Mr. Groome. Don't fall when you're skiing.
God bless.
Inside the final 150 yards, this is a special pair, and it's a Hattons full of grace. And it's Energumen opening up a clear advantage in the closing stages. A breath of fresh air over fences is going to stay at the helm of the 2 mile novices. Energumen by
Download the Boyle Sports app and receive generous offers for new and existing customers. Boyle Sports, this is betting.